So now that we have successfully implemented a drag over, what I'm going to do is bind a new event, and this is finally the drop event. So what we can do is bind another event listener, and we can just bind a drop. So this is going to give us an event object as we would expect. And what we're going to do inside the body of the function is two things. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is exactly the same as this. We're going to prevent default, and this will stop the event being processed in the default manner. Now, what we could do to just take a look at this, we could say console log and drop, and then save this out. So if we go ahead and just drag something into it, we can then drop it, and you can see that we have this drop in our console. Now, the reason that we have to add this event prevent default is, have you ever dropped an image into the browser? What it actually does is just open that image up, or a file perhaps. So what we're going to do, and we cannot simulate this with our box. You can see that we can keep dragging our box and it keeps logging out this drop. However, off screen, I have an image of myself, of course. So I'm going to drop this in, and you can see that we have a number 4 drop event. I can keep dragging myself in, and we're incrementing that number. So let's say that we get rid of our prevent default. What this is in fact going to do is then the browser is going to handle this dropping of our image in the default way. So you can see underneath my image, it says copy. So anywhere on screen, regardless of whether we're in this green box, we have this copy. So if I drop it outside of the box, it does in fact load a picture, and this is opened in a new tab, which isn't really a great experience for the user. Similarly, if I drop it in our actual drop zone and let go, this then opens the image as well. So this isn't really great. However, you can see that our drop event does in fact fire. So if we go and bring back our prevent default, this behavior doesn't happen. You can see that we can keep dropping in, and we're handling those images gracefully. However, if we drop myself outside of our drop zone, you can see that it does in fact load the image. So this is something we're going to look at in the next few videos, is improving the user experience outside of our drop zone. But don't worry about that too much just yet. So I thought I'd just demonstrate that with an actual image, because we can drag elements and we can also drag images, but it also helps us understand why we're adding these things such as preventing defaults. Now, while we are here, we're also going to add a new method call, and this is going to be stop propagation. You can see here that we have this when dispatched in a tree, invoking this method prevents any events from reaching any objects other than the current object. So what this will in fact allow us to do is when we do have a valid image or perhaps a DOM node dragged into our draggable area, it's going to not allow the event to propagate out. So if, for example, we've got another library or perhaps a component in our page is listening to a drop event elsewhere, it's not going to conflict because we are stopping the event after it's been dropped on our target that we are specifying ourselves. Now, this isn't easy to demonstrate until we actually have some more code written in the next few videos, so we'll come back to this. But for now, we're going to put it in and we understand the reason why. While we are here, I also want to, when you drag this over and let go, we do have our drop event. And I also want to add this line of code to remove this active class when something is dropped, because at the moment, the drag leave, because we're not dragging the element out again. So obviously we drag it in, we drag it out. When we actually let go, we're not dragging back out, which is causing this event not to fire. So if we were to add inside of our drop the same line of code, we can save this out, we can drag it in, we can let go, and you can see that that's successfully been removed. So depending on what we want to do, this has now been handled for both of those use cases, when we're dragging something out, when we haven't dropped it, and when we've dropped it as well. So we'll stop the lesson here. We've covered this event prevent default in both of our event listeners, a drag over and the drop. We've talked about the default browser behavior when we drop perhaps an image or a file into our actual browser. This doesn't occur with elements because elements are allowed to be draggable. So it'd be kind of strange if we were to drag an element and then all of a sudden it opens in a new tab. And we've then added some polish to our small application to then handle when we were to drop something, because otherwise our drag leave event never gets called. We've also quickly discussed the stopping of the propagation. So not only are we preventing the default behavior inside the browser, we're also stopping our drop event from essentially leaving our drop zone and bubbling up the tree of DOM nodes. So that's it for this lesson. Let's dive into the next one. And what we're going to do is look at how to bind some data to this div so that when we drop it in, we're going to then use this data transfer object and get some information about it. And perhaps do something with it.